Hey guys, welcome back to another Counter-Strike edition of our esports segment. We are going to break down the CSGO slate for tomorrow. It will be day 3 of our DreamHack Masters series. And we get a couple fun games. We've had North on every single slate and Astralis. And G2, I guess, for that matter. So we get some different mashups here. Another rematch between Astralis and G2 that we've seen, 2 times in the last couple of weeks already, with pretty similar outcomes. So let's jump into the odds first. In our first game here, Heroic coming in as a -145 favorite against North. North didn't look very good today against Astralis. They looked better, obviously, against G2. I do think the game's probably a little bit closer to a pick'em than maybe Heroic being a -145 favorite. But if I look at Heroic and the pricing on their side first, Nico at 9,600 is definitely a fade for me. He clearly is the best long-term player. Well, him and Tessis are pretty close, but they both are at about 0.73 kills per round, which is pretty good, but I don't think paying 9.6K for Nico as a slight favorite. I mean, even if it goes 3 maps, he's been negative kill to death in both of his last 2 matches here in DreamHack. So he's just not somebody that I'm really looking to target. I do think he had an ace in one of the maps, but other than that, I'm not really intrigued with the price, especially when we compare it to some of the other players that are actually cheaper than him in a much better spot. The next player that I'm kind of looking at, so on Heroic, if you go down to Tessis, with similar stats, also has not been performing that well the last couple of days. At 7,800 is a lot more reasonable, and I think a lot more playable. But my next one that I'm really intrigued with is Staven. He has a 0.67 kill per round, which is okay. It's a little bit lower than I typically would want, but for the price at 6,600, and in his last 2 games, he was +19 in kill to death against G2, and he was actually +10 against Astralis in 2 maps. So he's played really well the last 2 days. If you are going to put a lot of stock into that super recent form, he is certainly in play at 6,600. Again, not something that he's shown long term that he would be, +10 against a team like Astralis and +19 against a team like G2. But I do think the short-term form here is certainly relevant against a North team that is still really trying to figure out their identity with a new player in Cristal in their lineup. The next player I would kind of consider just mainly based on price is Cadian. Cadian at 4,400 has been viable, has kind of been in the middle of the pack during their performances. But again, if I don't see a sweep happening, but if they are winning, if they win 2 of the maps, I would expect him to probably meet value even at 10x here. If he scores 44 points, I think that's certainly doable in this matchup against North, and can easily exceed that as well. So that is the Heroic side. The North side, obviously AZ is always the first player that we take a look at. He looked pretty poor today. Really the only map he looked really good at all series so far was at Vertigo against G2, where I think he put up a 30 kill round. But at 8,800 again, as an underdog, is really hard sell in cash. I think in GPP that's certainly something you can go to. So I do think North has potential to win here, and they could even reverse sweep here and beat Heroic in 2 maps. Heroic hasn't really just folded over for anybody, so I don't really expect that to happen here with North. But I think AZ, if you think North is going to win or has a good chance, he certainly has the upside for a 70 or 80 point fantasy day, especially in 3 maps. MSL is a pass for me, way too expensive. Cristal, pass. Cajun B and Gade. I mean, Gade's cheap enough that it's really hard to not make value at 4,200, but you're not really going to be correlating it with any other plays if you're not going to be using North stack. You know, if you're going to use a heroic player, I don't really suggest punting with Gade or Cajun B. I'd rather you just then punt with Katie and then use Staven if you're going to use those two value plays from this match. Again, not two of the better teams in this series, but I think sometimes that's okay for DFS perspective because it just creates, you know, more competitive matches between those two. I think you always have to think about the talent relative to who they're playing rather than just in general overall. Our next game, G2 and Astralis, which we know we saw them play in Road to Rio at least twice in the last, you know, week and a half. Astralis coming in at minus 325. G2's prices similar to what happened when they played Astralis last time, just super depressed. Kenny S at 7,200, Nexa at 6,800, Hunter at 6,800 too. I mean, you're not going to find those guys cheaper than that ever, but you're also not going to really find them in a much more difficult matchup than facing Astralis. I mean, I think this would be the time that G2 would have a better shot tomorrow than they would have at Road to Rio, just with Astralis still figuring out how to use Yugi and kind of carving out his role and Magisk using the IGL. But today they look phenomenal. So I'm not really prioritizing any G2 players. I know if you just see the name and you see the price, you just instantly want to go to Hunter, Nexa, Kenny S, but just you have to remember who they're playing against here. A really tactical, methodical Astralis team that is not going to just let things open up. And G2, one thing that has been really nice about G2, and this is kind of why I really like the Astralis side, you know, they're not as interested in the bomb plants and saves, you know, so that just provides more opportunity for that one or two extra kills there at the end of the round when Hunter or Nexa is trying to clutch a 1v3, you know, and things like that. So I think definitely take that into consideration when you're thinking about rostering Astralis. I don't think you're going to see as many saves like we saw from North today at Inferno, which is really limiting to especially Device. Magisk played really well there, but the rest of the team, even in a dominating win at Inferno, was pretty low scoring just because of how, you know, North two guys go down, Astralis gets the bomb planted, they run away. So that's not really the style for G2. They're a little bit more rush, come in, go after it. So I do expect there to be more fantasy value for Astralis in this game than they've had in their previous two matches against Heroic and North. So on the Astralis side, we obviously always start with Device, and today he was priced at 10-2 as well. He is actually a smaller favorite, obviously, today against G2, but I do think even for the price, I mean, I think for the price being pretty high, I think he actually probably will exceed his 80-point fantasy game he had today. I just think when you are building, you need to think about how much you need out of him to make value, and what are you sacrificing on the back end. That was kind of my dilemma today. I used Device and K and G for MIBR in cash, which ended up being a mistake, especially considering it could have been Magisk and Henny. I just felt like Magisk was overpriced at 8,800 in the new IGL role, but it certainly doesn't seem to be slowing him down at all. And I think when you're used to seeing Magisk in the 7K range and then it's all of a sudden 8,800, just as somebody who plays a lot of DFS, when you see that huge spike increase, you think, okay, let the fish go after him way up top, you know. And KNG, I still think point for dollar, he was still you know, a great play. I just thought MIBR would put up a better fight against Furia, maybe take a map, but they really got destroyed at Vertigo and did put up a little bit more fight at Train. But the clutch plays they were allowing to happen at the end of the maps, 2-on-1s. I mean, Henny was just waiting and waiting. Henny was a great play. I should have played him in main slate. Obviously, a lot of people used him in the showdown slate and in late. He was pretty high owned all over the place, actually. So back to Astralis. Device, I think if your build makes sense to get him in, he is the top stud option. just know that I think when you have a player like Device at that price tag, similar to Zai Wu, every round I feel like if he's not either trading a kill to death or getting an assist and a kill, or it's hard to reach that value, depending on what you're giving up on the backside. So Magisk, price decrease at 8,600, has played super well the last 2 days. Zipix at 7,600, I think, is also very appealing at that price decrease, or that $1,000 discount from Magisk. And then we get all the way back down to Dupree, who was one of the most popular plays on the entire slate, who was pretty disappointing. I think he scored maybe 59, I think, and that was mainly based on getting all the rounds not played bonus, but he was okay. And I think he'll really be popular again at that price tag. And then Yugi at 5,200 will be certainly intriguing to see how many people insert him into their lineup after a better day today compared to how he played the previous day against Heroic. So I think if you expect a sweep, I think Yugi certainly makes value probably at 5,200. If it goes 3 maps, I think that's where it gets pretty dicey, especially in that extra map they're getting. You just assume that probably Device and Magisk and Zipix are probably leading the team there, and Dupree. I do think Dupree is definitely way too cheap compared to Zipix and Magisk, where a couple previous slates we had all those 3 within a couple $100. So with Australis, I would at least probably get 2 of them in your lineup tomorrow, just because I think there's more DFS value, and even in them sweeping just the style of G2, and they're not going to lose 16-3 in a map. It's going to be a lot closer than that. So I think it's certainly viable to use 2 or 3 Australis. And if you really want to get crazy, then you could use the likes of Kenny S, Nexa, or Hunter. If you want to watch somebody use the AWP really well, Device and Kenny S are amazing. So tune into that game to watch that. And if you saw Device's ace today at Vertigo, it was phenomenal. Just look it up. He used AWP down the ramp, took out 3, and then they came up the ramp, kind of came out of the smoke. He swapped with the rifle on the ground and just took out the next 2. It was a beautiful play, and super intelligent to drop the AWP for the rifle just in that situation, rather than trying to snipe when they were going to get that close. So phenomenal players. And in general, if you're just a casual person watching, just watch them use the AWP, especially on the CT side, where they are defending the bomb sites, or they are not planting the bomb. Then it certainly seems like it opens up a lot more crosshair spots for those AWPs to load it up. The last match, which similar to what I expected today, was going to be the most competitive, and it wasn't really. I guess none of them were super competitive. I guess the G2 was the most competitive today, but Furia and Team Liquid coming off of the loss against Chaos, and it's really hard to explain. I mean, the 2 teams aren't even anywhere near the same conversation normally. Team Liquid being one of the best teams in the world last year, and even as I've been talking to other people that are playing CS:GO and just talking about DFS, Team Liquid, they're all playing online, not together, where you see teams like they've shown North quite a bit, be in the same room, or they're living together, whatever the situation is. But Team Liquid online compared to playing on land, I think has definitely taken a toll on them a little bit. I think someone like Elige is obviously their best player, but I do think it can be a little bit of a head game for guys like Elige and Naf once things start unraveling, and they don't just not close in proximity, and just don't have that team feel. So hopefully that kind of turns around tomorrow, because I think them coming in as an slight underdog here is you're getting them at a discount in the betting market and in DFS. A couple of them in DFS. Elige still priced as the most expensive here, and he obviously has the most, some of the most upside on the slate with someone like Device. Naf is kind of a pass from. He played really well actually against Chaos, but against the better teams at Roto Rio, he was pretty average. Even the maps they were winning, it was mostly a combination of a liege and twists, or just a liege by himself. But I do like a liege. I'm not really sure if that's somewhere I'll go in cash, but I do like him kind of as an optimal play with upside. And then I think twists at 6,600. And Furia is a minus 145 favorite. So Team Liquid is the underdog here. Twist at 6,600 is certainly too cheap, especially if you compare it to the price of NAF. I do like, if you think back to Heroics, Staven versus Twist, I think even I lean Twist here even as the slight underdog, just because he's a better raw player, even against a little bit more difficult opponent. I think I think he's more proven. I like that spot a little bit better. But I think the Furious side is going to be really chalky. Them being a favorite here, and their prices are really cheap. Henny, obviously, as I've talked before, was one of the most popular plays on the slate. Played phenomenal, even though at times I just think it was more of MIBR playing awful. But I think he's definitely in play at 7,000. Yuri at 7,400 is a phenomenal play. And Quesarado, who was actually the worst of the three today at 8,200, is also a very good play. Don't let that one match, today's match, really get you off of Quesarado. I think we know long-term he has been their most consistent player and has the highest upside. But if you need the discount to Yuri or Henny, I think that would be a way to go. Deciding if you're going to use 2 or 3 Furia, I think using 3 Furia is kind of risky, just because they are going up against Team Liquid, who's not just an MIBR team that has a new player. They're getting a little bit less. I mean, they're a slightly less favorite against Team Liquid than they were against MIBR. And I think if you take MIBR and Team Liquid, I think Team Liquid would be pretty heavily favored in that matchup. So I do think this game is probably more closer to a pick'em if Team Liquid plays to their abilities. So I think if you're looking for a competitive game, you want to use 3 guys from this game in total. I really like any of Yuri, Henny, Twist, Quesarado, or Elige, just depending on how they fit in your lineup. So that's kind of where I would go there. I think, again, this is going to be, I feel like, a less optimal, a less chalk. I don't expect as many GPP chops that we had today. I think the builds were pretty similar around. I mean, I think some people use Dupree at captain, some people use Kenny S, some people use Hunter. Nexa, I think, was the least popular of the 3, just even though he ended up with a 30 kill round, 30 kill map at Vertigo. So I think your building blocks tomorrow are Astralis, starting probably with guys like Zipix, Dupree, Magisk. Decide if device makes sense at 10,200. And then, I think then you're kind of looking to that Furia Team Liquid game, unless you feel pretty strong about somebody from Heroic, like Staven, or if you're punting with Cadian. But otherwise, I think your big focus is going to be Astralis and the Team Liquid Furia game. I think even in a fashion where you're going to get a little bit of negative correlation playing against maybe 2 of those guys against one of the guys on Team Liquid, or vice versa, I do think it makes up to be a pretty high event, high kill, DFS friendly game. I would be shocked if even one of the maps didn't go to overtime tomorrow. So that's kind of where I'll leave you. Again, come join our Discord. We had people with takedowns today. I saw Haj with a takedown. We had some showdown takedowns. We have core plays every single slate, the main slate, the late slate, the showdown slates. You can post your lineup for questions to be answered. We will give you feedback. So feel free to go to fsidfs.com, go to our subscription plans, click on free quarantine month, and then you just get VIP membership to all of our free content right now. So I think that is a phenomenal way for you to get part of a community and not only just listen to these videos and learn about CSGO in general, but bounce your ideas off of each other, cheer on each other when we're winning, which is also the best part. So go to fsidfs.com, join our community, like this video, give us a subscribe. You guys are phenomenal. This has been great to see the fan base continue to grow. We want to continue to push out CSGO content. Call of Duty should be tomorrow. For some reason, we're not getting the odds posted from any of the bookmakers. So we might just go off of how Eddie and I feel about the teams and just really talk about it from that perspective. I don't think, there's anything too massive of a favorite that we would expect anyway. So tune into our Call of Duty breakdown for Friday's slate. And obviously we'll have another CSGO slate tomorrow, our video as well. I think we get 12 days in a row of these 3-game slates for CSGO, spaced out really nicely. Always are going to get the main, late, and showdown. So thanks again. I am Hold the Door DFS. Check me out on Twitter. Like, subscribe. Find us at our website. Win some cash.